Ukraine's defense forces destroyed a Shahid drone base at the occupied Donetsk airport after months of reconnaissance, causing multiple explosions and secondary detonations. Ukrainian defense forces have destroyed a major base used to store and launch Shahid strike drones in Russian-occupied Donetsk, commander of Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces, USF, Robert Madyar Brovdy reported. The base for storing, equipping, and launching Shahids, Donetsk airport, no longer exists, Brovdy wrote on Telegram. According to Brovdy, the operation was a joint effort involving Ukraine's Special Operations Forces, SSO, missile troops and artillery, and the 414th Separate Brigade of Unmanned Systems, Birds of the Madyar. Brovdy said the strike followed months of detailed reconnaissance. Developing this complex target took painstaking work over several months, assembled from small pieces. Last night, it was executed with the appropriate strike assets of the SSO and missile troops. The General Staff later confirmed that Ukrainian forces targeted a Shahid storage and launch base at Donetsk airport. Multiple explosions and powerful secondary detonations were recorded at the site. The Telegram channel Spy Dossier, which describes itself as being run by intelligence officers, reported that both cruise missiles and attack drones were used in the strike. According to the channel, the attack completely destroyed an ammunition depot, a fuel storage site, and a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, pre-launch processing facility, while also damaging power and communications units. The report claimed that up to 1,000 Garin, 2 drones, and more than 1,500 warheads were present at the airfield at the time of the strike, information that Kyiv Post has not yet been able to independently verify. Ukraine's Special Ops later published a report on Telegram, along with a video captioned, "How SSO drones blew up the Shahid warehouse in Donetsk." Footage from drone cameras shows the moments of impact, though Kyiv Post was unable to independently verify the time and location of the recording. On the evening of November 5th, Special Operations Forces units carried out a strike on a base used for storing, equipping, and launching Shahid drones in temporarily occupied Donetsk. The enemy's military infrastructure was located on the grounds of the former international airport, the report said. According to the SSO, more than 90% of the launched drones hit their targets. A powerful explosion and subsequent detonations were recorded on video by numerous eyewitnesses, the report added. Ukraine's targeted strikes on Russian drone factories and storage hubs have sharply reduced the number of Shahid kamikaze drones launched against Ukraine in the summer, according to reports from Kyiv Post and Ukrainian defense outlets. Between July and August, Ukrainian forces and security services hit multiple facilities used to produce, store, and transport Iranian-designed Shahid drones. The number of drone launches fell from 6,303 in July to 4,132 in August, about a one-third drop. Analysts say the decline proves Ukraine's campaign is working. Russia typically launches drones in waves, pausing 3 to 4 days between large attacks to rebuild its stockpile. In July, Moscow fired 728 drones in one record-breaking strike. In August, these pools were much smaller. Several key strikes disrupted production. Izhevsk, July 1st, Ukraine hit the Kupol electromechanical plant, which makes drones and air defense systems. 4 workshops were destroyed, halting production. Moscow region, July 4th, and 7 drone attacks targeted a Rostec plant producing Shahid warheads and the Krasnozavodsk chemical plant that makes thermobaric explosives. Tatarstan, August 9th to 12th, Ukrainian drones struck a major storage hub in KZYL supplying parts to the Alabuga drone assembly zone, destroying large reserves. Astrakhan region, August 15th, a strike on Alya seaport sank an Iranian ship carrying drone parts, disrupting foreign supply lines. Experts say the campaign has forced Russia to scale back its drone operations, making it harder to sustain large waves of attacks on Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. However, Moscow has tried to compensate by building new launch sites in the Bryansk and Oryol regions and recruiting young workers in Tatarstan to boost production. Russia's Pyrrhic victory, the true cost of Pokrovsk. The situation in Pokrovsk is critical. As Russian forces advance into the city at a staggering cost, the strategic hinge of western Donetsk is becoming a meat grinder. In this Kyiv Post interview, former U.S. Navy SEAL Chuck Farrar gives Jason Smart his brutal assessment about this battle, Russia is gaining ground. But at what price? It is a price too high for Russia to bear. The discussion focuses on the unsustainable losses in Russian vehicles and personnel and the hard choices Ukraine now faces. FAR assesses why Russia, previously, was willing to pay in blood for Pokrovsk, its rail links, road hubs, and strategic value, and how Ukrainian drone warfare and counter-battery fire are exacting a massive toll for every street. Moreover, now that the city has been largely destroyed, what does Russia really gain? FAR also examines the Russian tactics, the stress on Ukrainian air defense, and the operational tempo of these high-loss assaults. This is not a victory, but a brutal battle of attrition. Beyond the front, European enforcement on Russia's shadow fleet and the tightening of financial channels raise friction and cost for the Kremlin's war machine, aligning pressure at sea and on land. This analysis connects the tactical fight for Pokrovsk to the broader strategic and economic war. Viewers will get a clear-eyed read on the high-cost, low-gain nature of Russia's advance, how Ukrainian tactics are adapting under pressure, and the strategic implications of this fight for the rest of the Donbass. This is an evidence-driven briefing for those who want facts, not headlines, to get the truth of what is now transpiring in eastern Ukraine. Zaporizhzhia court hands down first life sentence for Russian soldier who executed Ukrainian prisoner. A Zaporizhzhia court sentenced Russian soldier Dmitry Khorshov to life imprisonment on Thursday for executing Ukrainian prisoner of war Vitaly Hodniuk on the battlefield in January of last year. Hodniuk, call sign Penguin, was 41 years old when he ran out of ammunition and surrendered to the convicted thief. Instead of taking him captive, Khorshov, 27, shot him and left his body near the foxhole where he fell, according to the BBC. This is the first verdict in Ukraine's history where an occupier has received such a sentence specifically for the execution of a Defense Forces soldier, the SBU, Ukraine's security service, said of the court's ruling, as per AFP. Khorshov, who joined one of Russia's Storm V assault units in exchange for his early release from a Russian prison where he was serving his sentence for theft, was put on trial in January this year, according to Reuters. Although he pleaded guilty to the charge, he later told journalists that he was innocent and hoped to be released in a prisoner exchange. Although Thursday's ruling was historic, Khorshov is not the first Russian soldier to be sentenced to life imprisonment for war crimes committed on Ukrainian soil. Vadim Shishimirin, then 21, was jailed for life in May 2022 for the crime of murdering Alexander Shelipov, a 62-year-old Ukrainian civilian, during the first days of the full-scale invasion, as per the BBC. In March of this year, a Finnish court sentenced the commander of a Russian far-right paramilitary to life imprisonment for committing 5 war crimes, including the killing of a Ukrainian soldier during Russia's 2014 invasion of eastern Ukraine. Also on Thursday, Reuters reported that the Office of Ukraine's Prosecutor General is investigating the deaths of a further 322 Ukrainian servicemen believed to have been killed after surrendering to Russian forces. Opinion: Putin's worst nightmare. Centuries after abandoning naval conquest, China again contrasts the West, trading tariffs, not missiles. As Beijing and Washington seek profit over power, Putin clings to war and ruin. China developed navigation before the Europeans did. Still, the emperor dismantled his exploratory fleet because it had become a drain on the imperial treasury, and his priority was to protect his borders. By contrast, Christopher Columbus found the New World in 1492. Other Europeans followed, then murdered, raped, and pillaged their way to colonize and exploit most of the world. Now, centuries later, these historical and cultural distinctions remain. Today, the last European colonizer, Russia, pulverizes Ukraine, stokes conflicts globally, and just terrorized the world by testing powerful weapons of mass destruction. China, by contrast, has been waging geoeconomic war with America over soybeans, critical minerals, and tariff rates. Beijing does not invade other countries and is a business-oriented government that runs the world's second-largest economy. And last week, China and the U.S. reached a truce in their tariff and trade dispute while Russia's Vladimir Putin threatened Armageddon. The China-U.S. geopolitical pivot is good news because its leaders pursue prosperity, job creation and profits, not carnage and conquest. Their deal is Putin's worst nightmare. Russian strike cuts power to mines in Dnipropetrovsk region. Over 2,500 people underground. 8 coal mines were left without power. On Thursday, November 6th, the Russian army carried out a strike on the Dnipropetrovsk region, destroying 8 coal mines, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Energy. At the time of the attack, 2,595 miners were underground. Rescue operations are underway, and preliminary reports indicate that there are no fatalities or injuries. Russia continues its energy terrorism. Another strike has endangered the lives of thousands of miners. Russia continues to wage war on civilians. Russia's tactics are clear: to leave Ukrainians without light and heat in winter, said Energy Minister Svetlana Grinchuk. Rescue teams and mine personnel have been working to safely evacuate all miners to the surface. The latest strike follows a series of Russian attacks on the region's energy infrastructure. On Wednesday night, Russian forces also launched drone strikes on the Dnipropetrovsk region, injuring 8 people in the city of Kamyansk. The attack partially destroyed the roof and floors of a 4-story residential building and damaged cars, infrastructure, and a local transport company. Advertisement. In recent weeks, Russia has systematically targeted Ukraine's mining and energy facilities. On October 20th, Russian troops launched a missile strike on an enrichment plant belonging to DTK Energy in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the 6th large-scale attack on Tech's coal enterprises in the past 2 months. A day earlier, on October 19th, a massive strike hit another DTK mine in the region, where 192 miners were underground at the time. 2 Colombian fighters in Ukraine's armed forces sentenced to 13 years imprisonment by court in Russian-occupied Donetsk. Alexander Anti and Jose Aaron Medina Aranda vanished while returning home via Russian-allied Venezuela. They were captured and transferred to the occupied territories to be tried as mercenaries. 2 Colombians who fought for Ukraine were jailed for 13 years each by a court in Ukraine's occupied Donetsk region on Thursday, after being captured while traveling home via Russian-allied country Venezuela, as per AFP. Thousands of Colombians have come to fight on the side of Ukraine's armed forces since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. Alexander Anti, 48, and Jose Aaron Medina Aranda, 37, first arrived in 2023. Rather than treat captured foreigners as prisoners of war, the Russian state classifies them as mercenaries, a term with legal implications that mean they can be prosecuted and imprisoned for up to 15 years. Nevertheless, research has shown that foreign fighters in Ukraine's armed forces generally fail to meet the definition of a mercenary under international law. The majority of foreign fighters are sworn into Ukraine's armed forces and paid the same as a Ukrainian soldier of equal rank and experience. According to the Russian-backed prosecutor's office, the men's prison sentences were convicted for participating in hostilities on the side of the armed forces of Ukraine. Anti and Aranda disappeared in Caracas, Venezuela on July 18, 2024. The 2 men, who were on their way home to Colombia after their deployments ended, are said to have still been wearing their Ukrainian uniforms. A video posted by Russia's FSB security service on August 30, 2024 revealed that they had been transferred into Russian captivity. Venezuela, a longtime ally of Russia, depends on the Kremlin to arm it, especially in the face of escalating military tensions with the U.S. The 2 men's families have been left in suspense about their fates for more than a year. In September 2024, Medina's wife, Cielo Paz, told the Buenos Aires Times that she and their 7-year-old daughter feel as if we're also imprisoned. Anti and Medina are not the only Colombians to face a long prison sentence after being captured by Russia. Earlier this year, 33-year-old Colombian citizen Miguel Ángel Cardenas Montilla was sentenced to 9 years in a Russian penal colony, according to The Insider.